All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 142, and today I realized there's a subject about tabletop RPGs that I don't think we've had a discussion about, and yeah, I think it's this is something that very few RPGs tend to do super well. So, if we go back to D&D 5th edition, because I bring everything back to D&D 5th edition, in the player's handbook, there is a section where it talks about the three pillars of D&D is what it calls it, but it does kind of fit RPGs in general. The three pillars that they mention in there are role playing, which is basically all the kind of interactions with NPCs and stuff like that, and interactions between players and that. There is combat, which should be self-explanatory, and then there is exploration. And a lot of people have complained that 5th edition does not do explanation very well because there's very few rules in the player's handbook that deal with exploration. There's a few more rules in the DMG, but nobody ever reads the DMG. But even when you're looking at kind of the expanded rules, especially once you get to something like Tasha's, where they start having even more kind of rules in there, 5th edition just doesn't really do exploration super well. And when you look at other RPGs, most of them really don't put a huge emphasis on the exploration aspect of RPGs. Now, what do I mean by explanation? Let's to try this one more time. What do I mean by exploration? I mean the aspect of your characters going into a place that they don't know, and exploring and discovering things. If we think like old school D&D, that's kind of like your old school dungeon crawls. Those are kind of, those are what the original kind of exploration was you would, keep going into a deeper and deeper dungeon, and every floor you'd go around and explore things. But that in and of itself is very limited because the only exploration you can do is the rooms that are already there. So it's a very, very structured exploration. Then you can get into things like West Marches campaigns, or just kind of wilderness exploration where you kind of go out and you have to kind of look and, you have to go through the wilderness to kind of find new places or things like that. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about exploration is the act of going into a place that you don't know and through a series of events discovering something new. And like I said, D&D does have exploration rules. There are limited exploration rules in the player's handbook. There are a few more in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But they're not particularly robust, and most people, it blows my mind on a fairly regular basis when I'm on like D&D Reddit and stuff like that, where people are going, I've come up with this really amazing, homebrew system that allows you to do chase scenes in D&D. And I'll just bring up, there's actually a system for that already exists in D&D. Well, yeah, but what are you talking about? It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Well, I came up with this really interesting system that you can use for like, relationships with NPCs and to kind of, that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide too. Like it blows my mind how many people only use the Dungeon Master's Guide as effectively a book where you get magic items from, and they completely ignore the rest of the Dungeon Master's Guide. But I'm digressing. So even with the additional stuff that exists in the DMG, um, exploration in fifth edition just really isn't that fun, especially when you have things like uh, Goodberry that makes, you know, some of the dangers of exploring on your own not really that impactful. If you get lost for a few days in the wilderness, um, if you run out of supplies, that could be a big issue. But with a single first level spell, your druid or ranger can just keep everyone perfectly alive. No need to find water, no need to find food. Um, with Leomund's tiny hut, you also don't need shelter. And so, generally, by about level 5, exploration, there's really nothing difficult about exploration. Like, there's no stakes to it. Um, and again, as far as like kind of coming up with interesting things for the party to find on the fly, like D&D in general just really, or at least 5th edition, just really isn't designed around that. If you look at something different, like if you look at Fabula Ultima, they actually have um, uh, travel rolls that you have to make. Part of creating the game map is you have to decide on how far you can travel in a day. And so for every day that you travel, you have to make a travel roll. And depending on what you roll, you either have a complication or a discovery. And both of them are expanded on in the core rulebook. But they're a little bit light. The new Game Masters kit that just came out has a little bit more about discovery rolls and conflict rolls, or I can't remember what the other ones are called, to make it a little bit easier. But it does create a slightly different system that kind of gives some weight to exploring different places. Because depending on what you roll and how dangerous the place that you're in is, it starts creating some stakes to exploring, because eventually you're going to run into something real bad, or you're just going to start bleeding away resources like hit points and mind points. So it's a little bit better system there. But it's still basically, oh, I roll on a table and then I see what the table says. So it's not really a robust system for exploration. And so, like, if you look at something like the Cypher system, they have ways for rewarding exploration. Like the original campaign setting for the Cypher system, it was originally designed for a game called Numenera. And the whole kind of lore behind Numenera is you are living in, I think it's called the Ninth World. There have been 8 other iterations of civilization before the one that you live in. And so they're just everywhere. There are ruins and, forgotten technology and all that stuff. And ciphers in and of themselves are part of this kind of ancient forgotten to the technology. And so it highly encourages the GM to just kind of constantly be showing off these ciphers, and fairly regularly introducing more and more. And anytime the players find something, do something interesting, well, here's a cipher, or here's an XP point. And so, as far as the rules for exploration, stuff like that, again, they're not super well defined in the cipher system, but they have a reward system built into it. And so that kind of makes this is some interesting things. So as far as like exploration systems in general, from a game design standpoint, you do need to have something that players can kind of specialize in that makes them better at exploring. If we look at like D&D, Rangers, it's one of the reasons why the 5th edition, the PHB version of the 5th edition Ranger just didn't work very well. There are things that, the favored terrain thing makes it easier for them to do certain things when they're in their favored terrain. It didn't go quite far enough, and because the rules were not super well defined for exploration, it didn't really benefit. But having something so that certain characters can be better at exploring than other characters, just simply by having something that allows that to happen, you will incentivize players to at least think about investing in. And then if there are rewards for exploring, like in the Cypher system or in Fabula Ultima, when you make your discoveries, you are meant to they're meant to be rewards. So when you find ways to incentivize exploring, then you encourage your players to take these abilities that make it easier for them to explore the things. And if there aren't any abilities or any things that are particularly keen at doing exploration, then again, even if there are good incentives for exploration, if it seems kind of random or it seems like something that's kind of outside their control because there's nothing that they can do to become better explorers other than, thinking a little bit harder. There's nothing that makes their characters better explorers. It's entirely the players. Then you're going to de-incentivize them to do exploration style content. So yeah, like I said, it's not something that a lot of tabletop pundits, I guess, talk about it a ton, other than to say that 5th edition doesn't do it very well. But it's something that I enjoy. The idea of players going out and just exploring and finding into new things is one of the things that I love so much about Fabula Ultima, was that it encouraged things like that. I didn't really get to do it in my mini campaign, but we had 4 episodes. We had 4 sessions, so there wasn't a lot. I had to miss a lot. And yeah, like I said, I haven't really found a tabletop RPG where it feels exciting to go exploring in places that I've never been before. Like, I mean, I like old school dungeon crawls and stuff like that, and I think those can be fun. But again, a lot of the times, your dungeon crawl, like, your reward is going to be a magic item or gold or something like that. And while, yeah, that can be kind of cool, it gets old pretty quickly. Or maybe your reward is, well, you complete the dungeon or something. Even that to me is an even less beneficial reward, because it doesn't really reward you for exploring, it rewards you for getting to the end. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you know a tabletop RPG where exploration feels exciting? It feels like it's a major part of the game system, and yeah, I'm just curious. What tabletop RPGs do you think do exploration best? And do you think that tabletop RPGs, just as a whole, just really haven't gotten that exploration kind of keyed down as much as they have, like, role-playing? There's role-playing that happens a lot. The World of Darkness games tend to be very role-playing focused, to almost to the detriment of combat. And then you have the exact opposite side with things like Pathfinder. They're very, very combat oriented, and the role playing kind of takes a bit of a back seat to that. But I can't think of a single RPG, again, aside from possibly Cypher and Fabula. I can't think of a single RPG where kind of the main focus is exploration. So if you guys know any RPGs like that, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today, and I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.